Hi, this is Sherry at the Intentional Home Podcast, where I share tips and resources to help you live with intention and purpose. This is episode number 45, and today I want to talk about how you can set up a simple daily schedule using time blocks. Now, if you have never heard this term before of time blocks, I'm going to try to explain it today. But before I get into that, I want to just share a little bit about, over the years, I've tried lots of different ways to set up my daily schedule. There are a lot of different resources and websites out there that kind of help you set up your day. There's anything from, jotting down the night before what you want to get done the next day to planning out your day in 15-minute or 30-minute increments, down to the minute what you're going to do every single, minute of the day. There's all kinds of extremes of different ways to schedule, but the one method that I continue to come back to, and it seems to be what works best for me, is using time blocks. It's a method that it gives you freedom, but it also gives you boundaries, and it also allows you to be flexible when you need to. So does that sound interesting? If so, let's dig in and look at time blocks. Okay, first, what exactly are time blocks? Time blocks are simply blocks of time that you arrange in your day with specific tasks or events that need to happen during that block of time. So let me give you some examples of some time blocks that I have used over the years. My morning routine block, breakfast block, chores block, homeschool table time block, lunch block, read aloud block, free time block, dinner and family time block, and home business block. So these are some of the different blocks of time that I have used over the years. I don't use all of them all of the time, and a lot of times some of these blocks of time just kind of develop into routines that I don't really think about them being blocks of time anymore. But some things, especially like our homeschool tasks and things like that, it really does help me to think of those things in blocks of time. And I guess let's go into the next section here, because I just wanted to give you some ideas of blocks of time, but now I want to look at what do you actually include in each of these time blocks. Now, this is where it gets fun, because you can really make this your own. Now, I know I've listed out and I've talked about the different time blocks that I've used over the years, but now I want to go through those and actually tell you what I have, the tasks that I have in those blocks of time, just to give you an idea. So for my morning routine block, that includes fixing breakfasts and lunches for my husband and daughter who work outside the home. So I get up in the morning and my morning routine block starts by fixing their breakfasts and lunches before they head off for work. Then after they leave, I have my Bible reading and prayer time. I go over my calendar for the day and I do some exercise. So that is my morning routine block. Then the breakfast block, which includes making breakfast and eating breakfast with the kids, doing our Bible time and our history studies at the table. That is our breakfast block. Then comes our chores block, where we clean up breakfast and then they go off to do their bedroom and bathroom chores. And then after that block is done, then we're ready for the homeschool table time block. And that includes all of our schoolwork that we do at the table, like math and reading and writing. Next is the lunch block, where we have lunch, and the kids also have some outside playtime or down in the basement playing games, whatever, just some little free time. The next block of time is our read aloud block, where I read aloud books to the kids, usually for half an hour, 45 minutes or so. Then is a free time block. That's just some free time in the afternoon, usually, where the kids can play outside, they can read, play games, whatever they want to do. The next block is the dinner and family time block, and that includes dinner and then everything after dinner, like reading or watching a movie together, playing games, whatever. Then the home business block is just blocks of time that I've set up throughout the day to work on my blog and my business. So as you can see, I have quite a few blocks here, but you don't really have to have that many. You can really simplify this if you want to, and you could just have like a morning block, like everything that you want to get done like between breakfast and lunch. Then you can have an afternoon block where, or maybe have 2 blocks in the afternoon. So maybe you'll have, one thing I wanted to touch on is that I think it is important to set aside a block of time sometime during the day where you have kind of like your time to get refreshed and renewed. It doesn't have to be a long block of time, but maybe you have a block of time that's just for you, whether it's, and then maybe in that block of time, you can have ideas of things that you would like to do. It's not really a to-do list, but they're ideas of things that refresh you and build you up. Maybe it's calling a friend on the phone. Maybe it's reading a book, taking a walk, taking a hot bath, whatever, renews you and refreshes you. I would encourage you to try to schedule a small block of time, even if it's just a half an hour, just to give you a little bit of time. So, but you can simplify these blocks. And like I said, do a morning block and maybe 1 or 2 blocks in the afternoon, and then maybe an evening block after dinner. And then just in each of those blocks, write down the things that you want to accomplish. Now, the next section is, how do I schedule time blocks in my day? Now, most of the time, you'll usually know what time of the day that you want to put these time blocks in, but don't be afraid to mix it up sometimes. The focus is really on just getting to all of your blocks and completing the tasks, but it doesn't really matter what order you do them in or what time of the day. So don't be afraid to switch things up and move blocks of time, those blocks around in your day if you need to. That's really one of the beauties of this method, is that you're not tied down to a strict time schedule where you have every task scheduled into every minute of the day. And so, when I've tried to schedule my day like that, where I have every minute, accounted for, and if something doesn't happen in the time that I set it, then I'm behind. It's so easy to get behind when you schedule your day like that. And then for me, I usually ended up just throwing in the towel and forgetting the whole thing because I just feel behind. I feel defeated. But using time blocks gives you some freedom there. It gives you a block of time to get things done, and it gives you a list of some of the things that you want to do. And if you don't get everything done in that block of time, it's not the end of the world. But that when that time block is done, that it's time to move on to the next thing, and it's going to be okay. But using those time blocks, it does allow you to list out the tasks that you want to accomplish. And maybe that's a good first step for you if you want to use time blocks. Maybe the first thing that you need to do is to sit down and just make out a list of all of the normal activities that you need to get done in a day. Whether, if you homeschool, that's going to add another aspect to your day. In fact, if you want to see, I'm going to link up a post in the show notes. If you want to see a post that I did that shows how it's actually a series of 4 posts, I think, but how I used time blocks to set up our homeschool schedule. I will link that up in the show notes so you can go take a look at that. But maybe a good way to start is to list out all those things that you need to accomplish every day, things that you want to accomplish, and then kind of divide them up into those blocks of time. And then just work through those tasks, in any order. So if you have a block of time in the morning that maybe you need to do a couple loads of laundry, and you need to make a phone call and set up a doctor's appointment, and maybe you need to homeschool one of your children, you don't have to do them in any particular order. You can get the laundry going first, and then maybe get your child going on some homeschool things, and maybe while they're working independently, you can make that phone call. You can have some freedom within that block of time to organize those tasks in any order that you wish and whatever works best for you. And if you don't do them all in the right order that you have listed down, you're not behind. You're still working on them. You still have that block of time to get it done. So that's kind of a little bit about how to schedule those time blocks. Some blocks of time are going to have to go at a certain time of the day, but there's a lot of them that you probably could move around and it wouldn't really affect anything. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is what happens if your day doesn't go as planned. I'm sure for many of us, we have days like this quite often. We're going to have days when things come up, like a doctor's appointment or some unexpected emergency that's going to call us away from home or just cause us to focus our energies in another direction. And that is when the time blocks really shine. So what you have to do is you just have to take a look at the time blocks that you have planned, for that day. Determine what needs to go, what needs to stay, and what needs to maybe just be rearranged to a different time of the day. So let me give you an example, and this one's going to be kind of related to our homeschooling, but let's say that I have a morning block of time and an afternoon block of time. And in my morning block, I include our homeschool work that we do at the table. And then the afternoon block is our read aloud time. So let's say that one of the kids gets sick and I need to get them in to see the doctor, but the only time that they have is in the morning, which is when I'm normally doing the bulk of our homeschooling in the morning. So I look at my schedule and I see, that we normally do our homeschooling work at the table in the morning, and it's going to take way too much time to do that since we have to go to the doctor too. So what I decided to do then was to swap the morning and the afternoon blocks. Since in the afternoon, the read aloud time doesn't take as long, we can get that done in a half an hour. Sometimes, I like to read more than a half an hour, but if time is a problem, a half an hour is fine. So I decide I will just switch my blocks of time. We'll do our reading time in the morning before we go to the doctor. And then after lunch in the afternoon, then we'll do our homeschool work at the table. And obviously the child that would be sick would not be doing that. But that is just to give you, an example of how you can move those blocks of time around. There's even been times where I had something come up in the afternoon where, I wasn't going to be able to do anything in the afternoon. And so I decided between, the morning block time, which is the bulk of our homeschool work, and the afternoon read aloud time, I decided that we were just going to do our morning block time in the morning like we normally do and get the bulk of our homeschool work done. And then our afternoon read aloud time, we would just skip that day. And, I just kind of determined which one of those was more important, was more urgent. And to me, our regular table time work was more, it's kind of more of our work that you need the repetitive, every day. And so I decided to keep that in place and then to just skip the afternoon block and give the kids some extra free time in the afternoon after we got back home instead. So, and I'm going to link in the show notes too. I have a blog post that has a huge list of free time activity ideas for kids. So if you have kids that tend to, when it's time for them to have some free time, they don't know what to do and they're bored, you can pull up this list and just start reading it to them, and it will give them a ton of great ideas. So find that link in the show notes. So I hope you can see how easy this is. It gives you a time frame. It gives you a block. It gives you the schedule, but it doesn't tie you down to a minute. It doesn't tie you down to specific time frames so that you don't feel like you're behind. So I hope that has helped you. This works whether you homeschool or not. I know I used a lot of homeschool examples, but even if you do not homeschool, this still works great. just helping you set up a schedule for your day and help you accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. And if you have never done this before, I would encourage you just to start simple. Start with just 3 or 4 time blocks and see how it goes. And then, you can always expand and kind of change things around as it goes. But I hope that you are encouraged to give time blocks a try if you have not already, because they really do give you the flexibility that you need, but it also gives you the freedom to make the schedule work for you. Thank you so much again for joining me here at the Intentional Home Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Or in Google, just search for Intentional Home Podcast and it will pop right up. If you would like more information about my podcast and to see the show notes with links to resources that I've mentioned in each of the episodes, just go to my podcast page at sherrygraham.com/podcast. Thanks and have a great day.